Good morning. Today we're going to go on a virtual tour of the Cotswolds. I was inspired to do this from watching some other World Without Tourism videos, and sorry I'm screwed up looking into the sun here, and I just thought it would be a nice idea to do this to show people what a virtual day tour of the Cotswolds actually looks like. So we're going to head off to the station in a minute to pick our virtual people up, and then off we will go for a few hours around the Cotswolds. The video is not going to last a few hours. So there is my old jalopy, where she has been for the last, I don't know how many months. I've probably put on about 200 miles since March. So I love driving this van actually. So let's see what the day brings. So we are on our way to the railway station. Our friends will have left London about an hour and a half ago. That's how long it takes to get from London to Campbell. If this was a normal day, this car park would be absolutely jam-packed full, and I would have a real problem finding somewhere to park. Unbelievable. So the time is 9:45. The train from London should be in shortly. Here he comes. So you would be on this train. It takes about 80 minutes, actually, 80 minutes to get from London to Campbell. Campbell being right in the middle of the Cotswolds. The train looks extremely quiet. And that's the way it is normally, but there would be normally more passengers that are on this train today. Nobody on the train at all. This one is going to London. So the first thing I'm going to show you, which is literally a 3-minute drive from the railway station, is this. Now you're going to wonder what the hell this could be, but it has a direct connection from where people have come from today, assuming they've come on the train from London. There's no water here at the moment, but this is the first bridge on the River Thames. So we are now actually on the Thames pathway, which you can go all the way to London on this path. Shown it in previous videos. The source of the River Thames, or the head of the Thames, is about a quarter of a mile up behind those trees, which I will show you its location later, hopefully, if I remember. You can actually walk to across the fields to the actual source if you are so inclined. So if this was the winter, when the ground is colder and less absorbent, I'd be standing in water. And as I say, here is the very first bridge over the River Thames. So the actual source of the Thames is past those cows over there and behind those trees over there. There's a sort of marker post that designates it as the official head of the Thames. This is Campbell Airfield, sometimes known as the Cotswold Airport. It's basically a private airfield. It's one of a great many World War II airfields in and around the Cotswolds. This one has simply been further developed than most. Many have gone back to grass fields again. Basically, it is used, as you can see, for recycling of aircraft, but also for aircraft storage, particularly during the lockdown. And now that the jumbo jets have gone out of service, there are quite a few jumbo jets stored here. Just thought it's something that could be of interest. I do tend to show people this. This is Malmsbury, an ancient hilltop town on the upper reaches of the River Avon, with a 1,000-year-old abbey. Just driving into Malmesbury past the silk mills. The term to be on tenterhooks, some people say tenderhooks, comes from the silk making process, where the very last thing that they have to do is to stretch the silk from these hooks, which are called tenterhooks. So the operator who was doing the work was always very nervous and apprehensive about the silk tearing. High Street in Malmesbury has been transformed to accommodate the requirements of social distancing with the COVID-19 epidemic. Right ahead of us here is the Old Market Cross, going past the butcher's shop, and on this 90-degree turn here you can see the Malmesbury mirror up on the left, which helps traffic getting around this 90-degree turn. And then on the right you will see the Malmsbury Abbey with the wonderful Old Bell Hotel right in front of us. So this is Abbey House Gardens in Malmesbury. Absolutely beautiful. A little oasis of peace. You're a bit of an old boy, aren't you? Hmm? Beautiful spot. This is Malmsbury Abbey, right next to the gardens. Part ruin and part parish church. So this is the Old Bell Hotel. Absolutely wonderful place to stay. Originally built in the 1200s. It's been added to on and off. But it's gorgeous inside and the food is lovely. And when possible, I arrange for customers to stay here. The Abbey figured in the Civil War. These holes you can see in the wall are musket holes. That's the clock tower. One of my customers said to me, looked at it, and I said, yes, it is leaning slightly to the left. And she said, yes, like the rest of your damn country. Just as well I've got a sense of humour. The Abbey has a beautiful Norman arch with intricate decoration all the way around. Absolutely gorgeous. Like many of the churches in the UK, this was a Catholic church and was shut down by Henry VIII and eventually reopened as a Protestant church. It actually had the highest spire in England, which fell down in the 1500s, but it was higher than the spire at Salisbury Cathedral. This is the Malmsbury Market Cross, where back in the 1500s you could have bought cheese and butter and dairy products, etc. Still a lovely place and still a meeting place, as you can see, for people. Here on the official boundary between Gloucestershire and Wiltshire, which is the old Fosse Way, the Roman road that still exists in places. Here it is just really a track, but part of it was actually built into part of the regular road. But this is the boundary between Wiltshire and Gloucestershire, and hence Gloucestershire, which is a head like this, is the Cotswolds. So half of me is in Wiltshire and half of me is in Gloucestershire. Just driving into Shipton Moyne, lovely little village. Had a nice little pub called the Cat and Custard Pot, which was my local, and when we used to visit there for meals, we occasionally used to bump into Prince William, who used to patronise the place himself. Behind these walls is Highgrove House, Prince Charles's home, that he bought many years ago when he married Diana. He still has it as his home, although as the Queen is getting older, he spends more time in London. The two princes, Harry and William, were both brought up here and would spend many of their weekends here when they weren't at school.
We are now in Tetbury, which is the town that I live in. This is the old town hall. Tetbury is known for its proliferation of antique shops, but 50 odd in the high street alone. Well, the local hotels, very nice hotel, the Close. Although Malmsbury is very close to here, and I tend to like to put people in the Old Bell, and I get a good price for getting people in there. I'm not going to go in there, but this is the Highgrove store, which is extremely popular and brings many people to Tetbury. A lot of very classy, well-made stuff. Profits of which all go to Prince Charles's charities. In the past, Tetbury has done extremely well with the Britain in Bloom contest. You see from the hanging baskets. Actually, the town make hanging baskets that you can buy and have at home for a price.
Well, that's the way they come. Yeah.
This is Tetbury Church, St Mary's. Actually not that old, built 150 or so years ago. It has the 4th highest spire in the country.
See you, banana.
There are many of these second-class B roads all over the Cotswolds. I do prefer driving on them, and taking people on them makes life far more interesting than tearing along main roads. So hope you all enjoy them. And yes, they are two-way. This is an example of what we call a stile, which takes people over the fence. You can climb over the fence safely into the field, and then you can walk across the field on a public footpath. One of the misunderstandings that people have about the Cotswolds is that we have lots of thatched cottages. There are a few thatched cottages in the Cotswolds, but Cotswold cottages are primarily known for having stone roofs. This is a beautiful little cottage, recently renovated, and is available to rent by the week. The line of trees right ahead of us runs along the side of a canal. Well, it was a canal anyway back in the old days. I'll show you in a second. So this canal was originally built in the 1700s to join the River Severn on the west of England to the River Thames, which starts within a mile or so of here. It wasn't used for very long because the railways superseded the canal system here. But the tunnel that you will see in a minute was the longest canal tunnel in the world at one stage. So this is the entrance of the tunnel, which was opened in 1789. I'm walking gingerly here because there are stinging nettles. And it was the longest tunnel in the world, nearly 4,000 yards, 3,800 and odd yards. One thing you'll notice in here is there is no towpath. So how do you think people moved the boats through here without horses? Here the towpath starts again. They basically had to lie on their backs and leg their way through, walking on the ceiling of the canal. This is the Tunnel House Inn. A lot of our canals have hostelries, pubs, every 3 or 4 miles to allow horses to be refreshed, people to be refreshed. And this was built to take care of the guys that were building the tunnel. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who think the UK is a cold, rainy country, check this out. Many of you will know that it can be cold and rainy, but today it's certainly not. It's pretty warm. You're just coming into Sirencester, which is known as the capital of the Cotswolds. Population here is about 25,000. Ironically, the same kind of population lived here back in Roman times. Cirencester was actually established by the Romans at the confluence of a number of roads, and the population in Roman times, as I say, was about 25,000. Here on the left, behind these green windows here, is the Carinium Museum, the Roman Museum of Sirencester. Fascinating place to visit if you have time. This is the old market square with the beautiful Sirencester parish church, and now we're turning into Dollar Street. Dollar Street is a unique name in the British Isles. There's no other street here called Dollar Street.
Here we are in iconic Bibury. Bibury is a place that is firmly on particularly the market of people visiting here from the Far East and Asia generally. And I sort of challenged myself to come through here after 8 AM and not see an Asian face. These poor people are picked up at 4 o'clock in the morning in London and basically given a tour of the entire country. I'm jesting, of course. It's a horrible day out for them. They come here, they're allowed to stay here for 10 minutes and then they move on to the next place. Well, right now, under circumstances of today, not an Asian face in sight, sadly. But the place is very busy with British people staycationing. Trout farm. So you tend to see a lot of trout escaped into the river here, which is a tributary of the River Thames. I always say there are Harley riders, there are BMW riders, then there are real motorcyclists. And I count myself as a real motorcyclist. The water in the river is very low, which is hardly surprising based on the amount of rain we haven't had this summer. This is one of the Cotswold gardens that people love to come and visit. This is a beautiful garden, looking a little bit as if it needs some water at the moment, like all of ours do. But the man that this garden belongs to is in his late 80s, and he does a great job every year still. Absolutely beautiful. And in addition to his flowers, he has a great vegetable garden as well. This is a place I like to bring Americans to, most of whom know nothing about it at all. This is Arlington Row. Arlington Row is the first ever built, purpose-built terrace of weavers' cottages, and a couple of things are famous about it. It's a place that Henry Ford wanted to dismantle and take back to his museum in Michigan, and also the name Arlington Row
is particularly poignant to Americans because people who established Arlington, Virginia, left this place and went there, and they called Arlington, Virginia after this place here, Arlington, England. So it's particularly interesting to people from the US. All these houses are occupied. They're not museums, and they would be way too low for me to get into, stand up in. The hill ahead of us here is called Awkward Hill. I had some customers staying here, and I told them to take this road to the local pub in the evening, and they said, is it safe for us to do that? So I said, well, we had a couple of murders earlier in the year here, but recently it's been relatively safe, the odd mugger here and there. Anyway, they knew I was joking. They said, no, we didn't mean that. Is it safe from wild animals who may attack us? So I had to allay their fears on that matter.
Normally, I don't know if you remember it, I said we're going on the way here, because there's going to be no coaches here. Yeah.
A couple of this year's cygnets, now almost grown to full size. So this is Lodge Park, which was built in the 1600s as a grandstand where people would come and be entertained when they were watching racing, hare coursing, horses, dogs, all sorts of sports, where people would go and stand on the balcony there and bet on winners, etc. Part of the Sherborne Estate here, right in the middle of the Cotswolds. Interesting building. You can go there and visit. It's owned by the National Trust. People tend to be very fascinated with these one-lane roads. What's going to happen if somebody comes the other way? Well, as you can see, there are really not that many vehicles on the road, but we will pass other cars. And you have to look way ahead, and basically the rule is if you're going down a hill, you have to give way to the car coming up the hill, but if there's a passing place nearby for the other person, well, you just take it and do the reasonable thing. Another thing that people comment on is how courteous and friendly we all appear to be with our fellow drivers on the road. Well, there is a need to just be reasonable and make space for people like this guy is going to do for me now. And yes, we do wave and we do say thank you and put our thumbs up and stuff. It just seems the polite thing to do, and tends to avoid the old road rage, which none of us likes, do we? We're just going to turn right after this beautiful Cotswold stone wall onto what appears to be a private road, but it's not. It's a public road going through the privately owned Salpoton Estate. The people who own this house must have spent a fortune on restoring hundreds and hundreds of metres of Cotswold stone wall all around the property. Normally right in this field here there are sheep early in the year. You can see the main house right up through the middle of the trees. That house owns all the land and all the property around it. So here we are in Salpoton, delightful little village. The entire village, as far as I'm aware, is owned by the big house that you will have seen as we drove through that park. Basically, they own all the land here, and these houses would have been used for the workers who worked on the land in the old days. But now if you want to live in a place like this, basically you have to come and rent. But it's a beautiful area, absolutely lovely. Just seeing that washing on the line over there takes me back to when I was a kid. I'm actually heading at the moment to Bourton on the Water. And then I'll be popping over to Stow on the Wold. The Cotswolds has some of these places that have got these sweet little Bourton on the Water, Stow on the Wold, Moreton in Marsh, etc. It sounds very sweet and quaint, and people sort of always mention these places. My response to them is that actually the sound of a town like Buffalo, New York State, that sounds quite romantic to me as well. But having been to Buffalo, I don't know that it's the sort of place that I would recommend for people to visit on a tourist basis. So Bourton on the Water potentially could be nice if it wasn't so packed with mostly British tourists who on a day like this come down from the Midland conurbations on their tour buses and take off their sweaty socks and dip them in the water. And I don't know what it's going to be like today with COVID and all the rest of it, but I call it boredom on the water, not Bourton. I call it boredom on the water. There are far, far nicer places to visit. So, true to my word, the place is absolutely heaving with people. So anybody who thought they'd like to come to a quaint place like Boredom on the Water needs to think twice. So this is Boredom on the Water today. No sign of any social distancing here. Quite unpleasant. The lovely Boredom on the Water. Quite extraordinary here today. Quite how I'm going to get over this bridge. Socially distanced, I don't know. So I think we've seen enough of this, and I need to get myself out of here. Somebody has to own one of them, I guess. So, as you drive into Boredom on the Water, you may be forgiven for thinking that it's actually quite quiet and tranquil, just like this little stretch of water behind me. But then you can hear the traffic as well, which is the indicator. It's extremely busy here. Upper Slaughter is a delightful little village. You have Upper and Lower Slaughter. The word slaughter is not derived from anything sinister. It comes from the Old English word slaw, which means boggy or marshy place. There's another town up near London that has a similar name, Slough. Famous for Mars bars, but this is a lovely lovely little place here. These people have obviously done some pruning, because last time I was here there was just an arch of greenery over the top of this gate, but I always think it looks lovely looking up through here. You look great. Not the best day for it, really, is it?
Too hot.
It's really unbelievable.
It's raining.
Yeah. Is this the traditional way it's done then, is it?
Yeah, but traditional, instead of nails, it would have been pegs.
Right.
Wooden pegs.
Pegs.
And hook them over the buttons. So,
But you'd have to make a hole in the stone.
yeah, and they'd, well, of course they didn't use our drills.
No.
So either have a hammer with a point on it,
Right.
and just gradually, this is taking ages. People had more time on their hands. Gradually, you know, just chip a hole. Or there was a
Yeah. Let's just show you. That's good.
yeah, or a hand chisel drill.
Right.
And they're sort of like a bit like a drill bit, but more sort of flat.
Yeah.
And just do that.
Yeah.
And
Got it.
gradually.
So we are now at the iconic Lower Slaughter. Who could believe that we are just a mile or so from the mayhem at Boredom on the Water? Scarcely possible, is it, to believe it? Private water. It's interesting. Never seen that before. But this is a village that doesn't like tourists, so I understand. So you buy a house here and then complain that tourists come here. This is the standard view of Bourton on the Water I like to take of everyone. Lovely place. Yeah. How about not liking visitors? Please don't take photos. Stay at home. All very friendly. All I would say is it's a nice place to have your photograph taken. Well, now we are in Stow on the Wold. Stow on the Wold is a popular Cotswold town, rather like Tetbury in some ways, because it's very much an antiques town and a major tourist destination, but not in the same vein as Bourton on the Water, just down the road. This is a more serious sort of place. People trying to knock people down by the sound of it, and plenty of antique shops all over the place here. The bins are being emptied, but I do like this old hotel posting house. Lovely piece of ancient architecture. The usual thing that you find in this kind of place. Right, I'm not staying here any longer. You can see the kind of thing that it is. It's a nice place to walk around for a while. If you're interested in antiques, it is a very nice place to come, but it is not really part of the iconic, picturesque, quintessential Cotswolds. On the other hand, the village of Guyton Power, with its very early church with a Saxon door on it, most definitely is quintessential Cotswolds. Beautiful little village. Just up here on the right hand side is the old post office, where if the timing is right, we stop and have a cup of tea in the afternoon, or maybe coffee in the morning. But this place is actually a racehorse training area, and as well as, of course, as the sheep. There are sheep everywhere in the Cotswolds. The Cotswolds used to be all about sheep. In fact, the name Cotswolds basically comes from two words, wolds being the Old English word for hills, and cots are where the shepherds used to shelter or sleep in these stone or wooden structures, most of which have now gone, but were dotted around all over the landscape, which gave the Cotswolds its name. So the Cotswolds were all about sheep, but today they're more about horses in terms of racehorse training. Just down the road from here we have Cheltenham, which holds arguably the largest horse racing festival in the world. It's all about hunting. It's all about 3-day eventing. They have the annual badminton horse trials, which is a 3-day event, which is an international event. And also very popular here is polo. So it's really all about horses today. We're just entering Naunton, another lovely little village with a little river running through the middle. And over this bridge here, if you look on your right, you'll see a house that is literally standing in the water. These were all farm workers' cottages in their day, but the house right ahead of us now, with the for sale sign up, is up for sale for over £700,000. So we're just coming into where the Black Horse pub is, a pub where I often take people for lunch. So here we are at the Black Horse, a regular lunchtime watering hole for my Cotswold tours. Very nice food. Beer brewed about 2 miles up the road. Absolutely lovely garden for hot days like this, but also you can go inside and it's very traditional, very friendly. Oh yeah?
Are you filming the car coming the road?
No, I'm not actually. Is it yours?
No? Well, the Aston Martin,
Right.
I wish it was.
I'm just basically, it's at this point that I normally start singing Climb Every Mountain, Ford Every Stream. There are a lot of fords in the Cotswolds, some of which are, or most of which are actually safe to drive through. definitely not the one at Upper Slaughter though. They will have water at different heights depending on rainfall, but most of them are safe to go through, and people quite enjoy doing it. So as I jump out of the car, you can see we're at another public footpath, and although the crops now have been harvested, you can see that the farmer has cut a path right through his crop. Here you can see the width of the road. Is this a two-way road? Yes, indeed it is. And here is another path right through some linseed, or as you call it in America, flax. Continuation of the path. Goodness, it's warm today. 89 at the moment. People often talk about thatched cottages, and there are thatched cottages throughout the UK, but thatch is not something that the Cotswolds is particularly known for. Our roofs here, as I think I've said before, tend to be made of stone, although if you come here to Chipping Camden, you will see thatched cottages. But here, I mean, the house I particularly like is this absolutely gorgeous stone roofed house with the beautiful, whatever they call it, tree decoration. Absolutely lovely place. And I prefer that to any thatched cottage, I have to say myself. Don't you think it looks absolutely gorgeous? Of course, these places are not just cottages. They are expensive homes. Sadly now usually occupied by people moving out of London, using the huge amounts of money that they make on properties there to buy somewhere in the Cotswolds. And now, of course, post-COVID, they may not need to go to London again. This is something I always point out to people. Another Victorian Postbox. Been here for at least 120 years. So again, here we do have some thatch. I suppose they are theoretically cottages, but you wouldn't be able to buy one of these for under £1 million anyway. I hit the nail on the head, did I? Yeah. So is it a cottage or not? This one right ahead of us now, I like the look of. I've always Stop to look at the way that the hedging isn't so manicured, and the two Great Dane stone dogs in the garden. I like it. Just driving into the main street of Chipping Campden. You have to be a little bit careful negotiating some of these corners. Everything's rather narrow and rather sharp, and the traffic can move quite quickly. But this is a nice little town, actually. I say that without having an intention of actually stopping and walking around today. Frankly, the temperature is going up and up here, and I'm happier in the car with the air conditioning on. But normally people do get out and have a look around here. There's some nice little stores, as well as the market hall up ahead of us here on the left hand side. If you're reading the captions, they also have the Cotswold Olympics here, which is basically a fun games. You have the cheese rolling contest, the shin kicking contest, and the wife carrying contest, where you have to carry your wife across a body of water without dropping her. Guess what usually happens? I love this view from just above Saintsbury. We're looking due north towards the Midlands. Looking a little bit thundery up that way by the look of it. But we're looking north towards Birmingham, Manchester and the north of England. Below us we have Evesham, which is the fruit growing area of this part of the country. This is Stanton. If I'm being pedantic, it's not strictly part of the Cotswolds because it is off of the Cotswolds escarpment and down on the level plain. But the houses here are a slightly different colour, so that reflects the colour of the local stone. And I do, when I can, take people here because it's a beautiful place. Frankly, these places are all spoilt by cars, and it's a shame that they're here. But on the other hand, if you look at what the villages would look like before they had cars, there would have been horses and animals pooing all over the streets, so that wouldn't have been very nice either. So we have to take the rough with the smooth, I'm afraid. So right now we're just about to go up a really steep hill, and that hill is going to take us up to, right ahead of us now, the village pub, which is aptly called the Mount Inn. Bit of a play on words, but a beautiful location. This is basically a road where you can't go any further. You have to turn around and go back anyway. The garden here faces due west. Used to come up here quite regularly on the motorcycle and have a drink and watch the sun go down. But it's got a lovely view of the village beneath. And in the winter, when you stand up there, you can take a photograph or something of the smoke rising from the cottage chimneys below you. I love this thatched cottage in Stanton. The decoration on the top with the fox is really cute. Different times of the year, the foliage and flowers and everything on the walls here can look absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful place on a sweltering day. This is Stanway, and this little place has the highest atmospheric fountain in the world, so I understand. This is the church at Stanway, and then just on the left here you can see the gates to the beautiful and privately owned Stanway Manor. Lovely looking place, and again look how honey-coloured the stonework is here. Yes, and this is Knott Grove, and yeah, trust me to have picked a day when the whole of the Cotswolds seem to be having a garbage or bin collection. Extraordinary. Just here coming into Turkdean, lovely little village. I say it's a village, there are no shops here or anything, so strictly it's a hamlet, which is just a collection of houses around the farm. The phone boxes nowadays are left here really partly for scenic traditional reasons. Some of them have unofficial libraries in them, and some of them have defibrillators in them. This little road here is quite cute, going along to Lower Turkdean. Again, stone walls everywhere you look, really. And this place here, where this car is coming out, is where Stevie Winwood lives. Those of you a certain age will have heard of him. We're now going to take a short cut through the tiny little hamlet of Hampnet. Bit of a tongue twister. Basically, the sign that says it's a gated road successfully puts off many people from driving through the village. But at whatever time of year it is, this little drive, it's only less than, well, maybe a mile altogether, just looks different every time you come through. In the summer it looks lovely, in the winter if there was snow on the ground it looks gorgeous, when the leaves start to turn it looks lovely too. So give you a little bit more information about the place now. This is a place where I often stop for a few minutes. A bit of a racket from a combine harvester behind us. You may be interested to see this. There are plenty of these around the Cotswolds, often in phone boxes. But what I normally show people is this postbox, which has all of our red postboxes have the initials of the reigning monarch on them. As you can see, this one is a Victorian postbox, so this went up in Victorian times. So the latest date for this postbox would be 1901. And I always try and imagine the if a postbox could write an autobiography, how it might reflect on the letters from mothers with sons at war and various things over the years. Boer War, First World War, Second World War, then from the mothers to all the children who decided to emigrate to Australia back in the 60s that I remember. The original key, pretty amazing. In behind here is the old Manor House, and this is one of the manor churches. What is rather unusual about this church is these stenciled decorations on the pillars, walls, and really quite unusual. So back hundreds of years ago, this church would have been built by the lord of the manor. His workers would have worked for him 6 days a week, and he would have paid them some pittance. And then on the 7th day, they were required to go to church and put some of their pittance into the collection. And guess who got that? So the nave and the chancel date from 1125, the year 1125. So one of the oldest ones. Amazing. This is what they call a kissing gate, and again it leads to a footpath right through the farmer's crops. Looks to me like this could be beetroot or something. I'm too fat to go through here, but basically I should think you've got to be pretty thin for this one. You see the combine harvester in the distance there. So right behind me is a patch of grass where I had 8 ladies from Taiwan who I picked up in Bath, and they wanted to do a Cotswold tour, and they wanted to end up in Stratford upon Avon. and we stopped here. We went into a cafe and they didn't like the look of it, and it transpired they got a lot of their own food, so we stopped here and they sat on the grass over there and picnicked on the grass across there. They were all very colourfully dressed, non-stop chattering in Mandarin or whatever language they speak in Taiwan, and I couldn't believe it. I'm afraid I'm not one who likes noodles, but this lady had boiled up her noodles in the tea kettle in the hotel in Bath, and then tipped it into a container and was eating it all sort of cold and congealed. Oh, no thank you. But I had a real laugh with them. They were good people. Two of them were living in the United States. One of a young girl of about 22, she was American, and her mother had moved there from Taiwan. It was basically all her family from Taiwan, and she was absolutely fascinated watching these ladies as well, realizing the culture difference between the US and Taiwan. These buildings here are now dwellings. They are converted barns. No longer suitable for keeping stuff from the fields in, so they converted them into homes, which is rather nice. I do these speeded up bits of film, not as a general gimmick, but more so as you don't miss anything, but also not dragging out the video unnecessarily. Something like this is bound to be quite long because it's actually been condensed from a 8-hour tour, so I hope you understand that. You could describe this as horse country. Horses are big in the Cotswolds. But there's something about this, and I've never been to Kentucky, but for some reason it makes me think Kentucky. I've got very good friends and customers from there. They've told me it's not quite like Kentucky, but at the same time I think of it that way. Again, all the houses in this village are owned by the big house, which is way over there in the trees. And if you want to live here, you have to rent. This is Yanworth, the place where all the houses belong to the big house. I always bring people through here. It's a beautiful little place. Interesting story. I picked up some girls from the airport for a one-day tour. One of them was a travel agent. Brought them here. I had to keep waking them up because they'd been awake all night on the plane. And we got to this place, and right here behind this gate there was a load of sheep inside the gate, and there was a baby lamb got out of the gate. They saw it and they said, "Oh, Rob, you must go and rescue the baby lamb," knowing full well that as soon as I said to them, "No, if I go up there anywhere near that lamb, it's going to run." So, "No, Rob, you have to rescue the lamb. You have to rescue the lamb." Well, so I came up here and did their bidding. Of course, the lamb shot down the road, and the girls jumped out of the van and then started hightailing it down the road, running down the road after the lamb. Eventually, right at the end of the road, the lamb had been rescued by some guys who were mending the roof, and they were able to pet it and everything. When they got back, they said to me, just imagine 24 hours ago, they said we were driving down that long hard road from the northern peninsula of Michigan, and now 24 hours later we're in the Cotswolds chasing lambs. Lovely little garden. Obviously somebody's planning to eat outside tonight. Who can blame them? Wine glasses at the ready. So nearly 9 hours later, we're back at the Campbell railway station to get the 6:47 train back to London Paddington. Hopefully everybody will have had a good time and enjoyed the tour.